extend it. Now when I go back to movie 1684, I can click and highlight and move this set of clips over, and then I can click and drag entire other sequences that we built. So I can take sequence 1 and I can put it into this movie 1684 sequence, and that's how you can build out a project from different sequences, or you could just build everything all in the same sequence. Usually that's just what I do. So we've got this title, we've got this first clip. Now when I want to add another clip, let's say I want to add this second clip, I can do that. And there's a few tools that you want to get familiar with on the timeline. So on the left hand side here, you can see all these different tools. And the main ones that you want to get familiar with are the selection tool and the razor tool. So the razor tool is pretty much like the cut tool. I can use that to create cuts. So let's say I don't want some of this clip, I can cut it out and then press V or click here and highlight the selection tool. I would get familiar with the shortcuts if I was you. V and C will switch between cut and move. And then I can click things, delete them, or move them around if I wanted to, and edit together your videos by cutting and moving and sequencing things together. Let's say I wanted to add a transition in between these two clips. I could do that simply by right-clicking and applying a default transition. That'll give us a cross dissolve. So that's a cross dissolve. If I click on the cross dissolve, I can choose in the effects controls panel to center it at the cut or start it at the end of the cut and things like that. So I'll usually center it at the cut. You could do the same thing with audio, and that'll just give us a basic cross dissolve transition. You can find other different types of transitions in the effects controls panel under video transitions, or build out your own by combining a bunch of different layers. So you can edit videos by just continuing to add media on there, cutting things or chopping things, and then moving things around and arranging and sequencing your clips how you like on your timeline. And you can utilize different sequences if you want to build out certain specific parts and then drag those in. Into your project. Another very important part of editing is just knowing basics about keyframes. So if I click on this clip and I see that there's a stopwatch next to any and all of these different effects that I can apply. So if I add a stopwatch icon, that'll toggle animation, and that'll give us this little diamond, which is a keyframe. So that means I added a key at 100 scale, And then if I move over like 5 or 10 frames and I add another key at 105 as the scale, and then I move over another 10 and I take it back to 100, what you'll see is that I'll create a little animation. It starts at 100 on this keyframe, then it transitions slowly into 105, and then it goes back down to 100. So keyframes, you can use them to animate any type of effect parameters or any effect controls. The possibilities are really endless creatively, but that's what that little stopwatch is, and that's how you can transition or start and stop effects. Because you don't want something to just be rotated halfway during the clip and just play like that for the whole clip. Additionally, when you're talking about audio, you can adjust the overall sound or volume of the track right here. This is at 0 decibel or normal volume, and then you can lower it if you want. Let's say you're adding background music, you can lower it down to an amount that's suitable for your ear. There's no specific amount that background music should be at. You could just listen and use your ear to see how loud you want things like the background music or background noise to be. So once you're ready to export your project, let's say you've created it, it's your finished 10-second movie here with all your clips and your title, what you'll do is go to File, Export, Media, and this will bring 0 to 11 seconds, and you can scrub through and see exactly what parts are captured. And there's a whole bunch of different ways you can export. If you just keep it at match source, which is the preset, it'll export things the same way that your original clip size was, which can work fine. Also, you can do things like go to the format, go to the preset, and there's all these different presets. So if you're exporting for YouTube, you can export for YouTube 1080p HD. It'll automatically take care of everything for you. And you could just choose an output name. So you could choose like my first video. It'll tell you where you're saving it to, so the desktop in this case. And then just click export and it'll render and encode things out and give you an estimated time for it to finish. Once it reaches 100%, it'll go back to your editing screen. However, you should see your newly finished video on your desktop or wherever you saved it to. And then you can save your project and close it, and you should be able to open it up and edit again if you want. But those are the basics of how to do some simple video editing and some important things that you need to know, in my opinion, to get started with Premiere Pro. Definitely check out
Hey everybody, it's Julian of Flow Graphics here, and today I'm going to show you most of the basic tools of Photoshop. So this is how to use Photoshop within 5 minutes. So let's get straight into it. Now once you have Photoshop open, you can just hit Control N to make a new document, and then we can just change all of our document settings within here, and then we can just press OK to make a new document. Once you've made a new document, you can simply double click on the background layer to make it into a new layer that you can actually edit. There's some Control E will merge them all together. Control G makes a group, and then you can make multiple layers within that group. And then you can also hit Control E on a group, and it will merge all of the layers in that group. To import any photo into Photoshop, you can just simply click and drag it into the scene, and then you can just click and drag the corners of the image to scale it. Otherwise, you can hold Alt, and then it will scale it from the center outwards, and then you can hold Alt and Shift, and it will uniformly scale it from the center outwards. And then you can also right click, you can rotate the picture, flip it, do all sorts of other things as well. And then if you hold Control, you can then skew the picture and change perspective and the angle. You can also hold Control and Alt, and then it will change this on 2 axes as well. Just to confirm or delete the changes, you can simply hit Escape to get rid of the changes, or you can just hit Enter to confirm the changes that you made. If you can't edit a layer, that's probably because it's not rasterized. If it has this little icon here, you can just simply right click on the layer, hit rasterize layer, and then you can duplicate it, you can merge it and do whatever you want. You can also hit Control U on the keyboard to go to hue and saturation. Here you can change the color of the picture, the saturation, and the lightness. You can also hit Control I to invert a picture. If you want to add any sorts of effects such as blurs and distorts and things like that, we can just go up to the word filter on the top bar here, and then we have this drop down menu here of things like the blur gallery, distort, pixelate, sharpen, all sorts of effects. So if I just quickly add a Gaussian blur to this and hit OK, you can see it adds a blur. You can also hit Control F to reapply the last effect that you used within that gallery. So if I keep hitting Control F, you can see it just adds more blur on top of the previous one. And this also works for multiple effects. Then I can press Control F again, and then it will reapply that spherize. So whatever you used last, it will reapply that. All of the color correction and color changing options you'll find in the adjustments panel. You can just go to Window and then Adjustments to bring up the panel, and then you'll see it here. Here's where you can change your brightness and contrast, your levels, your vibrance, your color lookup, gradient map, all these sorts of things. A really common thing a lot of people don't know about Photoshop is the vibrance. The difference between vibrance and saturation is saturation increases the saturation of all the colors in the image. Vibrance increases the saturation of all the colors besides skin tones. So if you want to make an image look a lot more vibrant but not make people look orange, then turn up the vibrance instead of the saturation. If you want to add text or any sort of effects or type to your image, you can click T to go to the type tool, and then you can just simply start typing. I could just type in my name here.